responses or questions so that when we come back, we can pick up right where we left off. I want to conclude today with some very definitive things. One, no one has tackled where race relation is on a priority scale of 1 to 10. So someone has to come up to the plate and tackle that. Two, the process of what we need to do to ensure that individuals like David, like Rod, like Paul have access to a database of candidates for their boards. Three, we talked about access to capital. So in terms of what we're going to do to attempt to assure that there is restructuring of BidCo or well as other access opportunities, One-Stop Capital Shop is here, a couple of banks are here. Lastly, protection and investment in equity interests in the African American community. And I think that's a pretty healthy agenda. Wouldn't you agree? A brief comment from the chairman of the Wayne County Commission, the Honorable Ricardo Solomon. We'll move there immediately to Chuck so he can talk about what he saw in terms of urban development capability in downtown Detroit when no one else saw it. And Chuck, if you could add to this, the other thing that during the break I was asked, the real magical question, and you've heard this throughout our discussion, is access to capital. How were you able to identify capital resources for real estate opportunities that no one else wanted or no one else believed were bankable opportunities? If you could tackle that after the chairman gives his remarks, that would be great.
Thank you, Representative Stallworth. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate both Representative Stallworth and Representative Parks for convening such an important meeting. I'm sorry that I got here late and that I have to leave early, but I have some other issues at the county that I have to deal with today. But I think it's important to begin this kind of dialogue with the cross-section of individuals throughout the county of Wayne. One of the issues that I want to share with you just very briefly is the fact that I think as African Americans attempt to increase the level of economic empowerment that they hold, that we in government must force certain issues, or I should say encourage certain issues. And I wanted to give you an example of a project that recently took place in Wayne County that I'm very proud of, and it would not have occurred without the legislative branch encouraging and really sitting at the table to craft out the strategic plan. Recently we sold 985 acres of land in the township of Northville. This project had been on our records for a number of years. It is a mixed-use development. It will be commercial, residential, and some industrial. But the unique aspect of this project is that it is in the most affluent area of Wayne County, Northville Township. And there are 4 African-American developers who are in joint venture relationships. And one African-American developer who is leading that team, and that is Don Barton. The reason that this occurred is because we at the legislative branch suggested that if in fact we were going to have true equity from an economic perspective, and if in fact there were individuals who qualified, that they needed to have an opportunity to participate. They fought us a little bit on that, and they wanted us to initially just provide opportunities from the standpoint of contracting. We said, no, that's not good enough. So what we decided to do is create minority-majority relationships. And from that, we have a project that all of us are very proud of, where you will have 4 African-American developers participating in a meaningful role from an equity perspective in the richest township in the county of Wayne. And I think the reason for that is because we said initially that there has to be a way to create this, and we were fortunate enough in the city of Detroit to have the experience needed. And I think secondly, and certainly not last, I think it's important as we move toward the 21st century. And I wanted to congratulate David Campbell, who's sitting at the table, for negotiating along with others the new agreement with the medical center. But I think we have to encourage major corporations to create opportunities for Tier 1 companies for African Americans. And where African Americans do not have access to capital, I think that it's important that those in majority companies recognize the importance of joint venture relationships so that those kind of activities can take place. As we approach this 21st century and the new millennium, economic empowerment, as Representative Starworth and Representative Parks has outlined, is going to be critically important. And we must find ways to create that equity. To me, it makes no sense for us to build stadiums or casinos or airports if there's not substantial diversity in all of those projects. That truly is the American way. And so that is why I think that we can accomplish the goals of creating African American economic empowerment if we sit at the table with those who are in charge and we're in a joint venture relationship from the legislative and executive side, by making them understand clearly that this is not a privilege, this is a right, and that we should craft strategic plans in a methodology or in a way that will allow for this opportunity. And the Northfield project is one of them, and I'm sorry that Don Barton had to leave, because out of the four African American developers, even though they are all in joint venture relationships, in his particular development, he was the lead developer on his project, and we're very proud of him and all of the other the other three groups who are participating in a meaningful way. Again, I want to congratulate you both for this. I think this kind of discussion is necessary for our region to grow. We are a unique community. There's no other place in America like Detroit with the kind of African American leadership that we have, and I believe that our city can be a model for economic empowerment for other cities to follow as we approach the 21st century. And with the kind of leadership that Representative Parks and Starworth and all the other legislators, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the chairperson of this foundation, the Honorable Alma Starworth, I think that we're on the right track, and congratulations, and thank you for allowing me the time to share a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chuck?
First of all, I agree with this forum. I just think it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us, to make Detroit a better place for all of us to live and work. I think you have momentum starting right here. I think you should carry it like any football team. Carry the momentum. This should be one of many of a series of forums that we should all get together, compare more ideas. We've kind of touched on a lot of interesting topics today. Real estate probably would be a forum by itself. I'm not sure we can cover a lot of the issues in a few minutes, but I can tell you that the Detroit market is hot. And you say, what? The market is hot. What are you talking about? It's hot. We have no industrial buildings left. We have no retail space, no Class A office, no Class C office. I mean, I can go on and on and on. We're building new homes, converting loft apartments, doing all these good things, bringing more people to live here, but we need to be a self-contained community. People do not want to drive to Oakland Mall to buy their shirt and tie and so forth. We need all these services. What that means is more opportunities for investors. I want to add to the negatives, some of the negative remarks were made earlier in reference to the opportunities that minorities are not getting involved with. Real estate is definitely one of them. Over the last year and a half, there's been a plethora of sales consummated, small, medium, large, in all aspects. And how many have been with minorities? Very few. I got to tell you, very few. Why? Well, I mean, that's a forum by itself. Access to capital, Ms. Johnson, you're absolutely correct. Knowledge. How do you do it? Well, I mean, you don't just read a book, go to a real estate seminar, and learn how to invest in real estate. I mean, you have to learn how to do it. And Mr. Beckham said, and I agree with you, we should maybe expand the choir. Let's bring some more people in. Let's bring some majorities who know how to do it. They can teach us. So we start from scratch. So what? I have my executive vice president is a minority, and I said to him, Terry, all I can do for you is open the same doors that opened for me. He now owns several buildings. A little like me, he's a small owner in many buildings, limited partnerships. Why? Because he's aggressive, he's honest, he's hardworking, and they love him, just like they love me. Nothing to do with the color of his skin. And it goes from there. Don mentioned the certain ethnic group that send money to their homeland. You know why they're successful? Camaraderie. I'm jealous of it. I mean, I've seen I'm trying not to stereotype religion or types, but I've seen them run into trouble financially, They get together at the table, have a coffee, and they bail each other out. I don't see that with the brothers. I do not. And it's the truth. I mean, we need to get, I guess, a game plan together, maybe sing from the same song sheet. I think that's imperative to go forward. And let's have these people, and there's a lot of these people who care about Detroit and care about everybody here and who lives here. They'll show you how to do it. The same they showed me and they showed Terry. Maybe we should start there. The question was asked, why did you get involved in East Jefferson? Well, anywhere in downtown, there's an opportunity, we'd be involved. And it's all perception. The average person would drive down the street, take a look at a building that's boarded up. I mean, it could be a house, it could be an office building. They'd say, oh, what a terrible problem. Isn't that a shame? And I'd say, wow, that's an opportunity. I mean, it's all perception. Again, very distinguished Ms. Stallworth mentioned that it still looks like the pits. Did you not say that? Well, I take that personal, believe me.
Because it's yours.
Absolutely.
But it's all of ours.
Well, on a regular basis now, we have people coming from out of state and the suburbs, and they say to me, your city still looks like the pits. And I say, get in the car here. I'm going to take you down the street. I mean, I'll show you Woodward, bad sections. I'll show you East Jefferson. I'll show you the financial district. And I'll show you building by building, block by block, of what's happened in the last 2 years. And I can tell you take a picture today and you take a picture in 5 years, I guarantee you won't know it. There's projects going on by the second, small, medium, and large. I mean, 6-7 years ago, we opened a restaurant in East Jefferson called International House of Pancakes. I mean, it hit every newspaper in the country. I was right in the middle of that mess with a couple of friends of mine. But the key is we opened a restaurant, a lousy restaurant, and it hit the headlines. We just mentioned there's 4 distinguished developers, minority developers in Northville. That's great, but that's just a restaurant. This should be done more in masses. And I think it goes back to the education process. Again, I'll throw my oar in the water. I'll help you any way I can. I don't like, without rambling, I don't want to go too much
Let me say this, Chuck. There are 2 things, and we'll be specific. In terms of capitalization for limited ventures like that, are you saying that the reality is that in the traditional credit market, it ain't going to happen unless we are able to go to each other and raise capital privately? There should not be an expectation that there's going to be some opportunity or support in urban redevelopment?
Yeah, I think you need to, you need to maybe unify in groups. I mean, you for example, there's a young developer who has bought and sold probably 30 or 40 buildings. I know, I've done it for him. He didn't have a dime 6-7 years ago. Not a dime. You got a couple of his brothers, okay, they put a few dollars in the pot, and we started slow, and we took baby steps. I suggest we do the same thing. The same thing, okay? And you do it in baby steps. And I guarantee you, after 2 or 3 baby steps, you'll walk into Miss Johnson or any bank and they'll say, what do you want? Now there's non-recourse loans in Detroit. Non-recourse loans, it shouldn't be for publication, but it's true. That's true. In the same market 3 years ago, they wouldn't give you a dime. Not a dime. The doors are not ajar but closed. All the banks, and if they're here, I'll tell them right to their face, they wouldn't give us a dime for anything. It was all creative financing. So I think maybe if we put together groups, 5 or 6 people, put in $5,000 apiece, $1,500, whatever you can afford, and start with something. And you build your own credit lines and your own references. It starts there.
Representative Thomas.
Yeah, I was just going to. I think Burton and I both kind of jumped on this. Agree with you, Keith, and Mr. Mady, that. I think it's probably true that the non-traditional approach to financing is what got you to the position you were in. I would say that when you were buying that property along East Jefferson in the 80s or 70s, to finance the acquisition of that through a traditional route, someone would probably laugh at you. If what you're talking about with what Bill Beckham is saying, it's difficult business sense to make an investment where in an area where the median income is half of what it is in other places, certainly a lending institution is going to look at this as well, and it's just not going to make any sense on their part to make the loan that ultimately will that they'll eat. So I commend you for saying that we have to come up with these non-traditional sources. Now I hope that we can broaden our discussion, probably another topic.
Story for Crane's Detroit business. and found that there were 16 to 18 black building owners in downtown Detroit, and their primary problem was finding tenants, just like most building owners were having that problem. So it's not as grim as most people think. Most people walk around downtown thinking there's not much of a African American presence, but there really is, and there's already a black infrastructure there if somebody would work with it to develop it.
Before we went to break, he wanted to make, and then we can move to Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Representative Stallworth. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in what I think is a very, very important set of opportunities to look at the capital issues, the opportunities for financing and funding relative to our respective communities. But I think somehow or other we missed a step because at any point in time where we're talking about the economics and the opportunities in the Afro-American community, we have to look at what I call the base that is representative of the population that's there and what the issues are for them. And I think there are two that absolutely have to get on the table as specific concerns for us, our community, and our concern for our communities. And one has to be that bugaboo that's called welfare reform, because in the final analysis, when we're talking about financing and structuring and trying to move our communities along, a foundation has to exist relative to the economic health and the needs of our population. And when you're talking about welfare and its implications, you can't overlook the implications that it has for the Afro-American community. The realities are that we have gone through a significant period where we, in fact, have seen a substantial restructuring, a changing, and if you will, almost a dehumanizing process that represents what's taking place presently and also what we can anticipate in the short term relative to families in our metropolitan community, and particularly those who have the kind of needs that are specific to welfare. No question that the changes that we're looking at are changes that we have not seen the full impact on at this point. I can give you a baseline to suggest that part of one of our programs, which is called telehealth, which basically takes inquiries from people throughout the metropolitan community and what kind of problems they're looking at in the short term and that are coming forward. Within the last quarter, we've had almost 7,000 queries, contacts made with our operations looking for help, and unfortunately 70% of the concerns, the questions, the opportunities and needs for help are people relative to welfare and some of the changes that have taken place, and all of the changes have not been incorporated at this point. What we're looking at is a system that presumes that we are going to be trying to provide people with an opportunity for independence, which I think is very important. The realities are, however, that we're looking at a very, very healthy economy, and so we're seeing the welfare rolls go down, but at the same time we have cut off substantial components and resources that are not going to be there when the ball turns. And you can believe me that the healthy economic circumstances that we're looking at this point will not be there forever. What we're going to find, however, is as we return to some of the difficulties that are a part of what we can anticipate in our society and our economy, there are going to be substantial numbers, and some of those substantial numbers, obviously the overwhelming portion of those in Wayne County and the Detroit community, are going to be people of color. I would suggest to you that one of the things that we absolutely have to fold into the mix are the implications for welfare, the implications for health, and a variety of the other kinds of services and programs that many of our families, unfortunate as it may be, do rely on. And I absolutely have to bring to our attention likewise the very important point that I think Mel touched on, that with all of the good things that we're looking at, and believe me, we are in unprecedented times in our metropolitan community where we can really take great pride in the things that are in front of us, the things that we can anticipate, and the good things that are going to be here within the next 2 or 3 years. The realities are, it's jobs, it's about jobs, it's about jobs. We can talk again about the economic health and the opportunities that may be appropriate and important to many of our entrepreneurs and people who are going to help drive the machinery. The reality is that it's people and what they have the capacity to do and the jobs that are going to be a part of this new development that are going to be absolutely essential for us to look at. Some of the realities are that we're probably projecting that within the next 3 to 4 years, our metropolitan community, particularly Detroit, are going to be looking at the potential of 30 to 40,000 new jobs. 30 to 40,000 new jobs, opportunities for people. From the perspective of those of us who are in the human care business, guess what one of the good problems is? That there will be the opportunities. The bad problems, there is no way in hell we are, as a system, going to be able to respond to those jobs with the kind of person power and the kind of preparation that's going to be needed to fill those jobs. We are walking very slowly in trying to address these problems, but we better start running, because we're looking at, in a very, very short period of time, the potential of casinos and what that may represent for our community. And with the part of the issue is, if in fact we're looking at temporaries, the whole industry moves almost tomorrow, and we have not done any kind of real preparation to make sure that we're preparing our workforce for taking advantage of those jobs. We're talking about all of the things that are associated with the stadiums and all the peripheral kind of employment opportunities, and also construction. And there's a lot of work going on, but I would suggest to you that if we're going to look at some real priorities, some things that we really can put our arms around and try to make a change in, I would suggest that these areas deserve as much attention as we're giving to, I think, the important aspects of financing, operations, and how we in fact move some of our corporations forward, because in the final analysis, the people who people our metropolitan area are going to be substantially affected, impacted by the opportunities that are here, and the kind of preparation that we do and don't do.
Mr. Beckham.
All right, I will adhere to your very, very clear. Two lines on the school issue, and it won't take long at all. We're actively involved in the public school system, and I hate to use the word reform, but in a way to try to see if we can't reposition the system to be responsive to the needs of the community. So I mean, we're working that. That's a long time effort. It's not going to happen in a year or 2 or 3, but hopefully in the year 2 or 3 there'll be incremental progress, and if we can stay with it, we'll see a change and a difference. There are a lot of institutional problems that go with that. On the corporate board issue, 2 factors we have to bear in mind. A local corporations board is going to more likely reflect the local population than will a national or international corporations board. And I think that's a very key point we have to remember. Utilities are local. That board, one might expect to see a more direct correlation between the composition of the board and the population. A hospital board might. But when you get to a General Motors board or a bank board that is multinational or national, it's going to reflect a much larger constituency base. And so so
on a progress scale, where are we? 1 to 10.
Well, on a progress scale, I mean,
you were created in 1969.
I think on a progress scale we're at about a 3.
Okay.
On that, and on the progress scale, and I'm going to address Paul's question as well. I think on the overall corporate commitment to on race relations.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's around a 4 or a 5 in terms of commitment. But I think we have to separate commitment from understanding. I think the corporations clearly have a commitment now. They talk about it, they say it, they do it, and I think they really want. But I think the understanding on what the implications are to their institutional practices and behaviors and the requirements is far from where it needs to be to actually achieve it. And I think that's the difference. So I think we can't question commitment, but we do have to begin to push very hard on how do we get the institutions to understand what it really means once you say it. And what it's going to
commitment, you would say, is about a 6.
Yeah, maybe
and action is about a 4.
Maybe a 3.
Maybe a 3. Okay.
And not necessarily intentional.
I understand.
No blame. I mean, that's just the reality.
Mr. Hilligan.
Actually, I'm not that far away from Bill. If you want numbers, the question of me was where did I think the state of Michigan placed race relations on a priority scale, and I really, and I'm an optimist by nature, but I would say it's no more than a 3, and that's probably being generous. In terms of the corporate commitment, I agree with Bill. I think the interest is real, and it's at least a 6.
I think what would probably make sense is for us to do a report on our meeting today, and along with yourself and Mr. Belcom, Mr. Barton, and others have urged us to have this forum again in the not too distant future, Madam Chair. So I think we should try to reconvene after we've done a draft of this report, and we'll do the draft, get it out to the participants, and ask for your additional thoughts so that we can have a working document that we can work from when in fact we do reconvene. Our objective would be to try to have something that we can submit to the executive of the city as well as of the state and county prior to their deliberations for this next budget recommendation. So that would mean we'd really want to have a working document going into the holidays that their staffs could review and use as some material for potential guidance as they put together their recommendations for legislative action for us in the 90th legislative session. So I would like to, at this time, ask Representative Thomas if he had any closing remarks, and of course Chairman Parks. And without further ado, if they do not have too long to speak, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Representative Thomas.